Do you feel like you took a wrong turn in life? Welcome to Morrow's Motivations, where we talk with people who educate, motivate, and captivate you with inspirational stories. Here's Dontrell.
It is my pleasure to introduce my next guest, Bobby Flores. Bobby is a serial entrepreneur, founder of Growler Media, podcasting host, and producer. Known to most as a fixer, you are just likely to find him rebuilding a blown head gasket or remodeling a bathroom as you are to find him building a website or editing podcast. He and his wife, Carrie, have 3 children and live in the land of enchantment. Bobby is a co-host on Beauty and the Beastly Minute and the LDS Dating Podcast. Okay, Bobby. Well, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. I'm so glad to have you here. And just for those of our listeners, I wanted to just say personally, thank you so much for being willing to support me in my goal of doing this podcast. Full disclaimer out there, I am with Growler Media, which is your company. And you get the full access and unedited previews of each of my podcasts that you help make sound just completely wonderful after the fact, especially with a lot of the technical issues that behind the scenes, personally that I have. So
Right.
Thank you in
You're
full
welcome.
advance for that.
Glad to help.
So just getting started, wanting to have the audience know a little bit about you. I found your story to be motivating since the day that we've been able to get in contact with one another and work together. I wanted to just talk a little bit about how you got started in this industry of production and kind of a little bit about what led up to that in your life, how you discovered that is a passion of yours.
Yeah, so it's kind of tied together. Both of my, again, I don't know if you call them career tracks, but both of my work endeavors. So I've been in the construction industry for pretty much my whole life. I've always kind of dabbled in and out of it growing up. And when I was in college, I started a business working as a handyman. And being in construction, that gave me a lot of time where I didn't really have to think about things too much. I was working with my hands a lot. And so I would start listening to audiobooks, listening to a bunch of audio stuff, and pretty quickly ran out of content to listen to as far as audiobooks go. And so I was like, well, okay, what can I listen to? What's out there for me to consume? And that's when I discovered, or I really started getting into radio. People were always listening to the radio on job sites. And so I started listening to a few radio shows, but most of the time you're listening to those and it's a ton of ads. It's a lot of commercials and ads and stuff. And so I realized that a lot of the radio shows had this thing called a podcast. And if I listen to the podcast, they cut out all the ads. So it takes a 3-hour radio show, a talk show, and without all the ads, it's actually more like 2 hours. And I was like, well, that's pretty sweet. And so I started listening to one podcast and then 2 podcasts. And before I knew it, I had about 80 something podcasts that I was subscribed to that I would, listen to. And that got me thinking, hey man, I could do this. I could start a podcast. And so it started there. I had a short podcast that I had going for a little while. And it takes a lot more work than you think it does, as I'm sure you're experiencing.
Oh yes.
You think it'd be pretty quick and easy to record something and throw it out there, but it's setting it up, getting the people, doing the recording, the editing, the publishing. It all takes a lot more time than you think it will. So since that was probably around like 2011, 12 is kind of when I started getting into, hey, I'm going to create podcasts. And so I had a few that I dabble with, and I got into one of the podcasts that I listened to. It was called the Indiana Jones Minute, and basically it's a podcast where you break down a movie into 1-minute segments, and then you take that 1-minute segment and talk about it in a podcast episode. So each episode of your podcast, you're interviewing somebody. Each episode of a Movies by Minute podcast, you talk about 1 minute of a movie, and it's kind of insane to think about, like, there's enough content for you to talk about 1 minute of that movie. There's a ton of the Movies by Minute podcasts, but that's kind of what got me launched into podcasting more seriously, was doing a Movies by Minute podcast. I did one on Beauty and the Beast, and we're still working on finishing that up. It's the 1991 Beauty and the Beast film, and that whole experience of kind of breaking down that movie and doing so many episodes on one thing led me to be exposed to a lot of different people. So a lot of people in the podcasting community, and then a lot of people that I wouldn't normally have been able to have access to. So I'm talking about the guests that I invited to be on the show. Some of them were, actors, voice actors that worked on the film, some animators, directors, and it was really eye opening to me to be able to use podcasting, use this medium to be able to connect with people and to have conversations with them and get to know them. And that's something that really called my attention. And so it was around that time frame that I was like, I want other people to be able to do this. And having gone through, this was about the third podcast that I had kind of started up and got going. I was pretty comfortable with the process at that point. And I was like, there's a lot of people out there that don't understand podcasting. It's a lot of work, but it's not a lot of hard work. So it's not too hard to get one started up and going, but it takes dedication, it takes work, but it's not a difficult and complex thing to do. And so that's when I thought of starting up the Growler Media Network to be able to, offer people an opportunity to say, hey, I'll help you, I'll walk you through this process of getting your podcast up. And we do kind of filter the podcasts that we work with, make sure that it's good content, that it's quality stuff. There are tons of networks out there. A lot of them look for different styles of podcasts. And for Growler Media, I don't have like one style of podcast that we stick to, but it's like, hey, I want something quality. It can be entertainment, it can be education, it can be self-betterment, but something quality that you can listen to, with your family in the room. You don't have to worry about if you're driving in the car that, oh, I got to turn this off because, there's inappropriate stuff for my kids to listen to. So, good content is kind of the key, what I would look for in other podcasts. So I guess this is kind of a really long explanation of how I got into kind of podcasting and getting it all set up. But right now, I think we've got 7 or 8 podcasts that are part of the network that I'm helping get out there. And some are inactive and some are active. But it's been really interesting and fun. And to me, it's kind of a fulfilling thing to be able to help other people to get their voice out there and to get their message out there, whether that is just, hey, here's something fun to listen to, or there's something more like your podcast where, you're trying to share a good message and trying to share people's experiences. So I don't know if that answers your question entirely, but I guess that's my spiel.
No, you know what? Thank you so much. I mean, and it's good to get an insight on you because this is something that I, again, find remarkable about your particular story. I love the fact that you focused on wanting to help specifically other people. You really find their voice and find their independence in this field of podcasting. I, for one, I'm first of all, thankful that you liked my work and found it to be appropriate for your media site. And also, just the fact that you got into podcasting because of the differences that it made with listening to a particular show on the radio and not having the ad and having to listen through tons of ads and commercials.
Yeah.
I find that it's incredible that just that one thing led you to, oh, wait, okay, I can listen to a full show without interruption. And wait, I can do this myself. For me, I didn't even understand what a podcast was up until I think it was 2015 when I was working as an intern for my college radio station. It was an online radio station, and they had me do a podcast after my first semester because they thought it would be a lot faster and it would be something that could be more time flexible than me specifically having to be at the radio station studio from time to time when I had other work and other classes that I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my first introduction myself to podcasting. It kind of sounds like around the same time you discovered the medium as well. One thing I really like, because you said that you do like different work, you are entrepreneurial. So how is it that you were able to navigate working through podcasting, helping people to get their work out there and also now creating your own? How do you manage that along with your other, work responsibilities you have?
Oh, well, honestly, that's been one of the big struggles with the whole kind of podcasting and media journey. Because as of right now, like I'm not really making money podcasting, so it's work. It's work that I love to do, but it's not really bringing in any income. There is a little bit of money that comes in, but most of that goes out again, just covering the costs that do come up from it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a struggle, especially when I was creating a lot of content myself. So as of right now, most of what I do is kind of managing and like executive producer type stuff, where I'm not working on the podcasts as much as I am managing and helping other people to work and publish their podcasts. So it doesn't take up as much of my time. But when I was actually being a host and creating, especially when I had the Beauty and the Beast, it's called Beauty and the Beastly Minute is the name of the podcast. But when we started that one out, we were doing an episode every day, every work day of the week. So, Monday through Friday, we would release an episode, and they were, 20 to 30-minute episodes starting out. And so we'd have to record all of those every week was recording, 5 episodes and then editing them and then publishing them and promoting them. And it was eating up a lot of time. And so it was a big stress because I was also working a full-time job and, had a family and we're having kids and having time with my wife. And so there did come a point when I was working on that where it just became a little bit too much stress on myself and on the family, and had to kind of step back and say, you know what, this is something I love to do, but it's unsustainable to keep it up at this level with the schedule that I currently have. So
Hmm.
that's been kind of a constant struggle, a constant back and forth throughout the years of how much am I able to do without putting too much stress on my family and on my work life, to be able to kind of move into this hobby and make it into something that's helpful to other people and fulfilling to myself without being damaging to my schedule and my lifestyle. So as of right now, like I said, I'm kind of more in an executive role more than a creator. I do have a podcast that I'm hopefully going to be launching here soon, but it's a lot more of a relaxed schedule where I won't be creating as much content. So it's not going to be as much of a drain. But a lot of the kind of executive stuff that I do, it's just kind of being more of a personal sacrifice. So usually I'll get home from work. So I work in the construction industry. I work with a home builder. So I'm out in the field, usually like 7 a.m. to around 5 or 6 p.m.
Hmm.
And then I get home, spend time with the family. We all try to get in bed pretty early because we have little kids. So we try to get in bed around 8 or 9. And then I'm up usually around 3 a.m. And then I work, 3 a.m. to around 6 on podcasting, on working on the network, on some other projects that I have going on. And then, get to the day job. So I find it so far that works for me. It's a personal sacrifice. I get less sleep than some people might. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of grind, but it's something that my family's okay with because I'm not taking away time from them, and that I still have that time in the morning where I can start my day and get going with something that I'm excited about working out. That kind of motivates me to get through the day job. And I like my day job. It's a good job, but because I have so many interests, I kind of need something different than what I do all day long.
Bobby, that's amazing. I love the fact that you, even though like you said, it's a personal sacrifice, I can still hear in the sound of your voice the fulfillment that it brings you. And being able to do that, I think in itself, whether you're paid for it or not with monetary means, you actually feel the joy of just knowing I've accomplished this and I've figured out a way to work it around my professional work schedule and my family schedule, and it's something that I can manage and that works for me. Personally, the thought of getting up at 3 a.m. is daunting for me, but that's usually because I, go to bed about midnight, and when I do
Yeah.
wake up at that time, it's probably because of insomnia and just a lot of stress on my mind. But like you, it is amazing. We have to find that time that works for us, because during the day, I teach special education at an elementary school, and that's rewarding, that's fulfilling for me. But this is something that I try to work around, usually the schedules of those individuals that are, willing to let me interview them.
Right.
And so it's always like you said, it's that balance. One thing I know for myself is when I've been able to just do what I'm doing now, being able to really just share these amazing stories and having people be able to be uplifted. I know for me that's gratification enough, for this time in my life doing this work. How did you personally feel when you realized you achieved this personal goal that you had set for yourself to really help people?
How did I feel?
Hmm.
I mean, I feel good being able to help people. Like I said, I like being able to help people find their voice. I like being able to help someone realize that what they're wanting to do isn't as big a hurdle as what they thought it was. So that's kind of one of the big things that I love about podcasting and helping people to podcast. Because 20 years ago, if you wanted to do something like this, there wasn't a way to do it. You would have to try to go to a radio station and pitch your show and hope they liked it and hope they thought there would be sponsors that could back it and hope that the listeners would be there, and it would be the people in your city that you have to pull from. And most likely, especially something like some of the podcast, if you think of a topic that you're somewhat interested in, most likely there is a podcast on that topic. The reason that's possible is because there's a worldwide audience. Anybody can go and search for a podcast and they can subscribe, and you can have 20 people. You think, oh, only 20 people will listen to my show. Hey, that's 20 people that are wanting to hear your content. And that's something that hasn't been possible in the history of the world up until, the last 10 or 15 years, that you can say, here's my specific thing that I'm passionate about, that I want to talk about. And I can do that. I can reach people all over the world that are interested in that same exact thing. And it costs me, almost nothing. And I don't have to worry about somebody coming and shutting it down, or somebody changing what I want to say, molding my voice. Some podcasts, obviously, they do have sponsors. They do have, ways that they kind of limit themselves in what they say, but that's not something they have to do. It's something that they choose to do to have sponsorship, or to have, ads on their shows, or to work with a partnership that kind of limits their freedom to express their opinions. But anybody listening today, you can get a microphone. You don't need a microphone. You can use your cell phone. You can record a podcast. You can edit it and publish it and get it out there. And it'll cost you less than $5 or $10 a month to stick your podcast out there. Send me an email, go to Growler Media, get the contact info, send me an email. I'll tell you how to do it. But to me, that's just something so inspiring and so powerful. And so, once again, kind of a roundabout way of saying, I love being able to help people to realize that, like, hey, you can start a podcast. You can get your message out there. There's somebody that wants to listen to you. It might only be 20 people. And in the podcasting world, 20 downloads an episode, that's small potatoes. I've got podcasts that do less than that. But the thing to remember is, if you have a message to share to somebody, if you have something you're passionate about and that you want to share with people, think how hard it would be to go out and get 20 people to sit down every week, every 2 weeks, every month, or whatever, in a room to listen to what you have to say. If you set up a meeting, you said, hey world, I want to, sit down and teach you a class, or have a presentation that I want to give you. And you're going to come into this room, and you're going to sit down and you're going to listen to me for 20 minutes or whatever it is. How big would it be if one person showed up physically in that room to listen to you? You'd be like, oh man, somebody's actually here. How big is it if 20 people are there? I was like, dude, like, there's actually people out there. I got to say something legit. And to think, even if it's just that 20 people and they're coming back, they're subscribed to your show, they're coming back every time you publish an episode to listen, that's power. That's something powerful to yourself, to them. That is, that's incredible to me. And, you got to think that there's podcasts out there that they don't have sponsorship or whatever. They don't have somebody pushing their message or their ads or whatever. And they've got thousands of people listening every week or every 2 weeks or whatever it is to the message they have to share. And then the community that comes behind that is just another thing that's so amazing to me, because you have something that's so niche, that's so specific. And when you find people that are interested in that, that's also been one of the great motivating things, and the joy that I found in it is that I can find people that are interested in exactly the same thing that I'm interested in. And we can get together, and they listen to a podcast. I listen to a podcast, say, hey, let's connect on social media. The friendships and the connections that I've been able to make through it have been one of the motivating things behind being in podcasting and sharing it with other people. Because most of my friends on Facebook, I've got, tons of friends, tons of people that I grew up with, friends from school, whatever, that it's fun to see kind of what's going on in their lives. But the people that I'm really interested in and that I connect with a lot more are the people that I met through podcasting, because it's not just, hey, we grew up together, or, hey, we had these connections 10 years ago. It's, hey, we have a common interest. And that's what brought us together, listening to the same podcasts or being podcast creators. So again, I don't know if I answered your question entirely, but I just love it. I love being able to help people to find what I found in podcasting and be able to share that with others.
Your explanation definitely answers the question, because just again, your passion for the topic and for how you feel about it is very self-explanatory. In itself, I personally can, not having known you very long, I can see that, choosing to be a part of your media company and seeing what you put out there has been the best choice for myself personally. And so I'm glad that you are willing to continue to help people and that you're sharing even your experiences and stories with us today. One thing I want to ask, because I know from myself, coming from the background that I have and kind of considering myself an introvert, this has been a growing experience for me. And I've seen myself grow and change in so many ways. What ways have you seen personally your own growth level change as a result of doing this work that you do with podcasting?
Oh man, it's been that's also been one of the places that I found the most satisfaction. When I first started podcasting, I don't like being around people. Big crowds, I'm not a fan of at all, still to this day. But speaking in front of people, it's something that I've somewhat familiar with and somewhat comfortable with in my church growing up. We're always giving talks and in front of crowds, and it's usually not a ton of people. And then I did serve a mission for my church, and so that was very uncomfortable for me to go out there and to talk to people, to talk to crowds, speaking a different language. So when I got into podcasting, you kind of get both sides of that because it's like, well, I know people are going to be listening, but no one's listening right now. And so it's been a growing experience for me to be able to kind of find my voice hidden in my room behind a microphone, where nobody can see me, where if I make a mistake, it's not a big deal. But as you do it, day after day or week after week, and you get more used to it, you kind of find your voice. You are able to express yourself a little bit better. And so your confidence builds. And especially once people start listening to the message and connecting, then you see that everybody really does. I mean, I know it's kind of a cliche. Everybody has their message. Everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has a voice. And you're kind of like, okay, yeah, but I don't really. But you really do. And the way to find it is by sharing it, is by giving voice to your message. So for me, it's been kind of that growing experience where 10 years ago, if somebody had said, hey, I want to interview you, I would have been like, yeah, no, thanks. I don't want to put myself through that. I don't have anything to say. And, even when you contacted me about being an interviewee, I was like, well, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about, but, I'll do it. I'm up for it. And I had an experience a few years ago. I was at a media conference saying, hey, how can we promote our message? And so I was interested in it. I went to the conference just kind of to sit in the back row and be an observer. They started talking about podcasting and search engine optimization and kind of how do we get more coverage for our podcasts and for our media. And so there was a Q&A, and I started, asking some questions and kind of having a conversation with the person that was giving the presentation. And somebody from the conference came up to me afterwards and said, hey, you said some really great things. We had one of our speakers drop out for later in the day. Could you give a 30-minute presentation on podcasting? And I was like, wow, like
Wow.
you've never even seen me before. You have no idea who I am. And we're here at this conference, there's like 150 people in this room, and you want me to like get up like with 20 minutes notice and give give a presentation. And the reason I was able to do that is because I had been practicing essentially to give presentations, to give speeches by doing podcasting. So it's kind of that 10,000 hour rule. Like the more you do something, the better you are at it until you become an expert. I'm no expert, but because I had logged so much time behind the microphone, talking to myself, to other people, interviewing other people, speaking on these topics, it's something that I was able to do. And again, kind of that was something that was very empowering for me to be able to say, yeah, I'll do that, and then do it and have people come up to me afterwards and say, hey, that was awesome. That was a great content. That was great presentation, your stage presence, everything. And I was like, well, I'm glad, because usually I'm behind a microphone, so no one ever sees me. Um, yeah, that's been something that's been really fulfilling to me, is to see my growth and to experience the level of confidence change throughout this whole process.
That's awesome. That's absolutely amazing. And good for you. Good for you for allowing yourself to just, take that opportunity right then and there. I know for me that would have been like a okay kind of thing. But good for you for actually just saying, okay, yeah, I can do this. And I'm sure you did a fantastic job. That's awesome. I know that personally, when you're trying to look at life and you're trying to just sort out like what is my purpose, what am I here to do, you can fill it up with so many different things, or sometimes you feel like, I don't know, big question mark, big blank, I really don't know. But for you, it sounds like honestly, being able to be of service and to be able to help uplift others is one thing that you take very seriously and to heart. And so, for yourself and for your own personal definition, Bobby, how do you define success?
Oh, I should have seen this one coming because I've helped edit some of your podcasts. uh, so for me, I think success is about finding satisfaction in what you're doing. I've thought about this a lot because in my professional career, like I said, this podcasting is what I kind of do for the joy of it. And in my professional career is what I do to pay the bills. But it's something that I've struggled with a lot because I want to find satisfaction in everything that I do. And what I do for my job, that's the majority of my day. That's the majority of my life, if you think about it. And so I've thought a lot about, how can I find more satisfaction in my work? It's a hard one. So as for me, personal success, if we're talking about work, like having an income, it's covering the bases, making sure my family's is well cared for, and then being able to do something that I find satisfaction in and that I can be proud of, that I can look back on and say, you know what, I did that, I did the best that I could, and what I did was something that was worth doing. I don't have to make a ton of money. I don't have to create the most awesome thing ever, but being able to say, what I did was something that I enjoyed doing, was something that I found satisfaction in, and that was a good product or that was able to help people. To me, that is success. Money comes and goes, fame and fortune comes and goes. If you think about somebody, look back at the last 100 years and who do you remember from that? There's not a lot of people that their name's going to be out there still. So it's not about the fame, it's not about the fortune, because that stuff is not going to be around forever. But it's about having satisfaction in what you're doing every day and then leaving a net positive outcome, whether that's through your job or through the product you're creating or through the service you're doing or through the people that you're contacting. I think personal success, if you have a family, it's got to be good for your family. It's got to be good for yourself in leaving a positive outcome, whether that is through an exceptional work that you do or through the interactions you have with people. For me, that's what it's all about.
Dude, that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And for yourself and your life, because I know that you do the best you can. Like, a lot of people, we try to live the best lives we can. We try to be a good example and supportive. What would be your personal legacy that you would hope to leave on this earth to family, friends, those that you serve in the community? What would that be?
So I think more than just like one contribution or something, I think it would just be more of the influence that I have on other people's life, especially with my family. I mean, that for me is paramount. They're the only people that are going to remember me again 100 years from now. No one else is going to know Bobby Flores, but except for my family, they can look back on the family tree and say, hey, grandpa, he was great and he was loving and he was kind and wasn't focused on other things so much that he neglected the family. So the biggest thing for me is to have that positive influence on my family, be able to provide well, and then have good relationships, raise good kids, have a loving family. That for me is paramount. But then again, outside of the family realm, just being able to have a positive impact on someone's life, and that doesn't have to be through work. That can be through kind gestures, that can be through being a friend. So for me, the work life supports the rest of our life. If I'm working and doing something positive there, that's going to allow me to provide for my family, to provide for my living, and be able to be a positive influence on others. So if I'm thinking when I die and people are showing up at my funeral, I want them to be able to share stories of, hey, this is something that Bobby did that helped me, or something good that I was able to contribute to their lives, because in the end that's what people are going to remember. That's all that really matters.
Well, Bobby, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your personal experiences and giving me some time to really have this intimate conversation with you. And I know you're a busy man. You you have a lot to do with your family and probably with your media company as well. So, again, thank you for all that you do and for spending this time with me today.
You're welcome. And I do appreciate you inviting me on the show. Like I said, I'm not sure how much impact my message will have on others, but hopefully somebody listening out there, needed to hear that you've got a voice, that your message can get out there, that, connecting with other people, connecting with like-minded people is something powerful that can help motivate you, that can get you excited about life again. So find something you're interested in, find something that brings you joy and go after it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that your message will resonate with others because you've motivated me this morning. And I, again, so thankful for you and for your guidance and friendship.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Morrow's Motivational Podcast. Please join us again next time.
Wow, something is really different on the growler. Really different on the growler. Really different on the growler. Really different on the growler.